to take down, ground and pound. That was from the top. Heel hooking, no more plot to leave you in the knot. Pound for pound, been the greatest. Sitting on the top, and I'm laughing at the fools who think they coming for the spot. You ain't got a fucking shot. It's already mine. You can't never fucking stop. You know I stay on the grind. Broken bones and black eyes, they just part of the life. Haymaker, MMA, we taking over your mics. No sleeping, bloody knuckles. It's nothing to the hustle. I'll be fighting till I die. Every day is still a struggle. I made it out the rubble. My knees ain't never buckle. I came here for a fight, but I'm ready for a rumble. So you gotta feel the chaos we've been leaving behind. Cause ain't nothing going down that I didn't design. But it's time to start the show, so extinguish the flame. Haymaker MMA, we going straight for your brain. Yeah.
And welcome back to Haymaker MMA. I am your host, EJ Reed, joined by my fellow hosts, Aaron Admire, Steve Johnson, producer Jay behind the scenes. What's going on, fellas?
You know what's going on here. You seen on the pre-show, I got a Canadian at my house, and we got 3 slabs of ribs on the smoker, and we got I'd say it's about a 3-pound thing of macaroni and cheese getting ready to go on the smoker.
Yeah, man. Sounds like you're eating good tonight.
Yeah. Last couple of days, you know, they got some shitty food in the pokey, so I eat good when I come out of jail on Sundays.
Hey, like we said last time, to hear the recap of Admire's weekend, check out the 80 Proof podcast on Thursday. How you been, Steve?
I'm pretty good. I had to recover after indulging a little bit, drinking beers and watching the fights, but recovered and good now.
What's your beer choice, Steve?
I never was a beer drinker, but what lately got me hooked to it is because of beer, I don't like the bloatiness and how much you got to drink to where I rather get shots and get it over with. Yeah. But Bud Light Platinums, 1 or 2, I'm done. I'm out. Like I feel it. And 3, I'm drunk.
Oh,
I don't gotta drink that much.
Yeah. Hey,
right?
I don't drink anymore, but let me give you a little hint on drinking beers. I learned this from TikTok the other day. So, you know, a lot of people, if you order a beer at the bar and they do the tap and it's a lot of foam, people say, oh, that beer's got too much head. That's actually good for the beer because that's getting the gas out of it. It doesn't bloat you as much. So you want to pour your beers to where they do have a lot of foam on the top because it's not going to bloat you.
Do you drink the foam as well?
No, you can just let the foam, settle down. But yeah, that gets all the carbonation and shit out of it.
Yeah.
And I learned that from John Taffer, the bar rescue guy.
Hey.
Yeah, every time I drink beer, I start pissing like a horse.
Hey, we bring fun facts here at Haymaker MMA, so the more you know.
There you go.
But it's funny that you brought up Bud Light Platinum, Steve, because I remember I was in Vegas. This was 2011, and a waiter brought us a bucket full of these Bud Light Platinums. I'm like, what is Bud Light Platinum? I never heard of it before. So we were like kind of the testers for like their soft launch of Bud Light Platinum in Vegas in 2011. And I'm like, man, this is amazing. Like, they need to hurry up.
That's a good beer. It's like it's Bud Light version of like Michelob Ultra, right?
I think so. It's got 6% in it, so it has some kick to it.
Yeah, it's got more alcohol than like the Michelob Ultra. It's like,
but it's supposed to be low calorie, low carb, though, right?
No,
maybe
it's just a light beer, but it's like a higher gravity. It's a higher gravity of light beer.
Okay.
It's got a little sweet taste to it, a little bit.
Yeah, tad. Yeah,
it's good. It's good stuff, man.
Yeah.
But let's start to talk about what we all came here for. UFC 290 this past weekend. Well, not past weekend because it's still Sunday. It was this weekend. But what a card, man. It had a bunch of bangers on it. And before we get into the main card, let's talk about some of these prelim cards or fights, so to speak. We got Esteban Ricovas defeating Kamuela Kirk by decision. Jesus Aguilar starching Shannon Ross by KO punch. Cameron Salomon defeating Terrence Mitchell by TKO. Vitor Petrino defeating Marcin Petrinho by submission. And then to the Main prelims, we had Alonzo Menafield defeating Jimmy Crute by submission. Denise Gomez defeating Yasmin I'm botching her name. Jaguar Tweed.
That's a tough one. That's a tough name
Yeah.
right there.
Sorry, I botched your name up, Yasmin. Forgive me. Tatsuro Tauri defeating Edgar Chavez by decision. And then in the feature prelim, we had Ruthless Robbie Lawler defeating Nico Price by KO. Any of these prelim fights catch your eye, admire, besides the featured one before we get into the featured one?
No, I just had today to get caught up. So I started at Robbie Lawler and I watched all the fights after that. I mean, I got to acknowledge it. I mean, what a way to go out. He didn't go out on his back like a lot of fighters tend to do. And, he was his signature self, got inside with that dirty box and uppercuts and just laid him out. Beautifully done. I mean, like we were talking pre-show, that was going to be my clip of the week, but I'm sure we were going to show it anyway. I mean, it was awesome. I don't think he's the type of guy that goes away like that, though. I don't think he's done fighting, man.
Yeah, before we get into that, did you get a chance to watch that Robbie Lawler fight, Steve?
I didn't get a chance to see it, but I looked at the highlights and yeah, like you said, he lit him up. Like I said, he went out to where lately I think these fighters retiring, they've been losing lately. I feel like I may be wrong on that, but it's good to see somebody go out on their retirement fight and win. So I'm very happy for him.
Well, we happen to have a clip of this fight. So producer Jay, let's take a look at this. It didn't last long.
Man, just that little dirty boxing with the head grab and straight up the middle. I mean, it's his move.
Had time to watch it twice. He got inside, caught him with like an uppercut, didn't he?
Yeah.
And the dude just dropped like a sack of potatoes. So Robbie Lawler going out as a win on his last fight with emphatic finish. Man, Adam might talk about it a little bit, but you think this is his last fight?
I don't think so. I mean, I think he's still got what it takes to be top 10 in the welterweight division. I would like to see him stay retired and not take any like horrible losses, like some of the people we've seen retire lately that go out on a 3, 4, 5, 6 fight losing streak. I'd like to see him stay retired, but I mean, they call him ruthless for a reason. He's always going to be dangerous. He's going to be dangerous until, he's mid 40s. So I could see him coming back for maybe, I don't want to say a circus fight, but something if, Cowboy decides to make a return at some point, or kind of a old school matchup. If somebody wanted to do it, I could see him coming back for that.
Steve, what do you think? You think it should be his last fight?
Well, it all depends where he was ranked and how far he has to go. Robbie Lawler is in his upper 30s, isn't he?
He's got to be.
Yeah, he
now.
has to be.
That might. Yeah, you could look that up really quickly. I think he's got to be 40. He's been in the UFC forever.
41 years old, boys.
Oh yeah. Well, he's up there, and depending on his rank and how far that, unless Dana's gonna shortcut him to the top or put him in a fight and he has to win it, top fights and ranked people, it depends how hard that road is. And if we analyze it, and if I do look at it and I see the road's too tough, I don't think it's discouraging.
Man, they had him
live on his life.
They had him ranked all the way back at number 38.
Yeah. Ooh. So I don't know if I quite agree with Admire. I don't know if he's a top 10, but if he wanted to, he could stick around and do fun old guy fights with some of the older people in the division. But I don't think he stays retired. But I don't think he fights in the UFC. I think he might try to, give it a try at bare knuckle. I don't see him going to Bellator for some reason though.
he would be a scary guy in bare knuckle boxing, but I think having him ranked at number 38 on this list that I'm looking at is complete trash, man, because he could beat all these people. Like they had Nico Price at 27. You know, they got Gunnar Nelson up there at 21, just throwing out some names. Neil Magny at 12. A lot of these guys, Robbie Lawler could clean out easily. But I mean, think about Robbie Lawler, Platinum Mike Perry, bare knuckle boxing.
That would be a banger.
A lot of them have already left. Well, not a lot of them. Those two have left a lot of brain cells in the cage already. So, you know, what's a few more getting lost in the ring with bare knuckle?
Yeah. Yeah. I'm not sure if he was under any kind of contract or not, but, you know, we all knew this was his retirement fight. And I don't think I've read anything that he had any plans. I mean, I'm sure he could go on to have a good coaching career, you know, definitely could go into coaching.
Yeah,
so, go ahead, Steve.
Definitely, if he finished it out, like you say, if he finished out his contract, or he retired while still in contract, is also depending if he can maneuver around. I think most likely he finished it out, but I don't know for sure.
So, if this is his last fight, how do y'all summarize what Robbie Lawler's career has been? Like, what do you rank him at, like, as far as, you know, MMA great fighters in history?
He's probably top 10 welterweight of all time. I mean, for sure, just because, you know, he held the title. I think last episode, we went through kind of his win column. I'll pull it up again, and he's got some big names on there, because I remember I was trying to kind of discredit him a little bit. But if you go through his win column, so he's beat like Nico Price last night, of course. He's beat Nick Diaz, Donald Cerrone, Carlos Condit, Rory McDonald, Johnny Hendricks, Matt Brown, Jake Ellenberger, Bobby Volker, Josh Koscheck, Matt Lindland, Melvin Manoff. That's a big stack of names.
How about you, Steve? What do you think?
And as far as what again?
Just summarizing Robbie Lawler's career, like, what do you view him as far as his sport in general?
He's one of those fighters that, like, you know, sort of the Forrest Griffin, and, you know, they stamped the popularity. Robbie Lawler was, like, in that time amped up UFC again, I think, based off that war and how bloody it was, and Rory McDonald's nose was smashed in. And then after he's winning, he's screaming out loud. He's got a little gash in his, you know what I'm saying, screaming out loud. He has a good background in the career with his fights, and I think he had a significant career to where he's one of those people that can be easily mentioned, versus other fighters fade away and probably you might remember him from fighting somebody else, but we know who Robbie Lawler is.
Yeah, like, now that I think about it, Admire saying like all time in UFC welterweight history, I might put him there at number 5. He was kind of like the bridge between the GSP era and the Woodley era. I put GSP above him, of course. Usman, Woodley, Matt Hughes, and probably got to put Robbie Lawler right there at number 5. I might be missing someone, but
yeah. Let me tell you his losses. I mean, his losses are against all highly, highly ranked people. So his most recent loss was Brian Barberina. We know that. So he's lost to Neil Magny, Colby Covington, Ben Askren, Rafael Dos Anjos, Tyron Woodley, Johnny Hendricks, and then some old school names: Lorenz Larkin, Tim Kennedy, Jacare, Babalu Sobral, Jake Shields, Jason Miller, Evan Tanner, Nick Diaz, and Pete Spratt. Those were all very high-ranked fighters at the time.
That's funny that you mentioned that. I'm going to kind of go off track. Whatever happened to Jason Miller? He had a lot of hype. Mayhem Miller? He was like on Bully Beatdown. He went crazy after that and had a lot of criminal charges.
He went crazy after that. allegedly or speculating he might have got into some drugs. You listen to Sirius XM. He used to run around with Jason Ellis, if that helps you, see what kind of mind state he was in. So, yeah, he just got really off track. And then, Dana White paid to have Jason Miller come in after Strikeforce folded. And Jason Miller and Michael Bisping had their season of The Ultimate Fighter. And then Bisping just beat him down. Like, Jason Miller didn't even try.
Mhm.
Yeah, I don't know what he came in with a lot of hype. What do you think about Mayhem Miller, Steve?
Yeah, he just disappeared into the fade. I mean, last time I hear more of negative altercations with him, like with Ariel Hawani on his show, saying his stupid grandma's or his mom's basement. Just have a lot of negative occurrences with people, and also speculations of people saying he has personal life problems. So I never looked at him as I couldn't even tell you all the fights he's been in. That's how I'm uninterested in him as a fighter, but that's all I hear about him.
Yeah, so Jason Miller has not fought since 2016 when he fought at a company called Venator, and he lost to somebody that doesn't even have a Wikipedia page. So, yeah, like you mentioned, the Ariel Hawani interview where Miller was just being a dick to him. Jason Miller came back and said it's because he was in character. Because if you remember, there was a movie called like Here Comes the Boom or something. The MMA, the teacher became the MMA fighter.
I think it was Kevin. What's his name? He was
Yes.
from Queen, King of Queens, was it? King of Queens.
Yeah, the Paul Blart guy.
Yeah,
and yeah, it was called. I think it was Here Comes the Boom, and Jason Miller was a fighter in that, and that's probably the last notable thing that he's done, other than probably get arrested.
Yeah, what a fall from grace. But back to the topic at hand. If that was Robbie Lawler's last fight, hats off to him and congratulations for a historic career. But if he does come back, then we will keep an eye on that and talk about it here on the podcast.
On January 21st, 2023, Jason Miller called into Adam Hunter's YouTube show. If you know who Adam Hunter is, he's a comedian that does a lot of MMA stuff. So that was, 6-7 months ago, and Miller was in prison at the time.
Jeez.
He was in prison for felony assault and battery that took place at a bar in California.
He kind of reminds me of like a MMA version of Bam Margera. It's like a downward spiral.
100% agree.
Just, erratic behavior, but hopefully he gets the help he needs. But that takes us to the main card, fellas. The curtain jerker of this one was Bo Nickel defeating Valentine Woodburn by absolute starching TKO, and not a lot to this fight, but Bo Nickel showed that he got some hands. He's a All-American wrestler in college, but he showed he had some hands. What are y'all thoughts on this fight?
Yeah, I mean, that fight went the way that, the odds showed. I mean, it was just absolute starching. I don't even know what the strike count was. It couldn't have been very high because it was very early. It was 38 seconds into the fight, I think. 7 total strikes from Bo Nickel were landed, and one of them was the knockout.
Steve?
Well, from what I see, I definitely think he needs to get a more up-ranked fighter now. Second of all, I think this dude's going to be dangerous, and I may have to see one more fight with somebody ranked to see it. But I think a wrestler that knows how to box is dangerous. I think we're about to see some good fights from him in the future.
Yep, 100% agree. Yeah, he looked really good on his feet. I know he was going against a guy that wasn't, that came from the outside we haven't ever seen anything of, but just his head movement and everything in those seconds we did get to see the fight. I think Bo Nickel could be, I hate to use the comparison, but kind of like a John Jones, a wrestling base that can strike.
Yeah, I'm gonna hold the horses because we've seen this time before, anointing up and coming prospect before he's tested. So, like Steve said, I gotta kind of see him in the cage again against higher opposition. I'm looking at the top 15 of middleweight. They haven't updated it since this past fight card, but number 15, you got a Chris Curtis. Didn't he just have a weird fight, disqualification or something recently?
Yeah, he just fought like 2-3 weeks ago, I thought.
Yeah. Something wonky happened in that fight. You have Andre Muniz, Imavov at number 13, Gastelum at number 12. I don't know if you rush him into a top 15, but if so, then I think Chris Curtis would be like a nice litmus test to see, what he really has if you want to throw him in with a top 15, but you might want to maybe hold off, give him maybe somebody in the top 30 one more time. I don't even know what this dude he fought. He wasn't ranked at all. This is his first UFC fight, so maybe stick him against a top 30 guy first before.
I think Dana White's gonna strike while iron's hot. He's gonna throw him up there against like a Kelvin Gastelum, Derek Brunson type.
And what were you saying, Steve?
Or it might not be the popular thing, or given that fight that was canceled.
Yeah, I can't even remember the guy's name, but
Jay Gore.
Yeah, he was supposed to fight Gore.
And I've seen a few of his fights. He seems explosive. I think he would have been a more explosive striking battle than with the dude they had. I think that was we saw his skill, but I think it was just like a dud fight. Actually, looking at it now, they had to make it happen, make a fight happen, and it really didn't show anything. He was just too fucking experienced.
Yeah.
I think Jay Gore would be a better skill match.
Yeah, but that Val Woodburn, we've never seen anything from him. He was brought in there just to pretty much take the fall. But the couple strikes that he did throw, he was throwing hammers.
Oh yeah,
I'd like to see Dana White give that guy another shot and say, hey, you did us a solid stepping up. You got your ass beat by this, up and comer. We'll give you one more shot. I want to see what that guy could do because he was throwing lead.
He was.
Yeah, he was.
He's bought in as a jobber, but he got like a slight glimpse of, what he had in his hands, but he wasn't ready. I think he had like a 3-day notice.
Yeah.
On the
I
fight.
think they say he was cutting grass when he got the call.
Yeah. That's what they said. He was cutting his own grass when he got the call. I was like, wow, man. They just dug deep in the, out in the other promotions and just found a guy. I can't believe they couldn't find an in-house guy.
Yeah, you think they have a guy, waiting on standby just to step in, but I guess not.
I don't know why they don't do that. UFC should always have a backup that they, $5,000 just to stay ready and be ready, just in case. That way you don't have a situation where they have to grab somebody from another promotion, and it could be somebody that is, around the same ranking, something to fill that in. $5,000 per fight on the card isn't going to cost the UFC, but an extra $30,000 just insurance to keep a fight.
Yeah. They do it for the title fights, but like you said, they should just do it for the whole main card just in case. That's not costing you anything. They're making fistful of money at this point, but I don't know why they should just do that for the whole main card, have a standby fighter.
Yeah. And one weird thing I noticed about like the Robbie Lawler fight and the Bo Nickel fight, they were in the T-Mobile Arena, but during those two fights, I couldn't tell where they were at. That arena was so quiet. It didn't seem like there was anybody there.
Really?
It didn't start getting loud till after like the Jalen Turner fight.
Did you notice that as well, Steve? I didn't really pay attention.
Like I said, I was probably incoherent to probably even recollect that. I was watching it though.
Uh, yeah.
I noticed that
I,
there was hype moments that crowd did get hype, but it's trying to recollect comparison to others. I can't put a name on it.
yeah. I gotta go back and watch that again. But
Mhm.
I guess we just gotta wait and see on what they throw at Bo Nickel in the future. I mean, he's no spring chicken either. He's what, like 27, Admire, if you look at it.
Let's
Because he had a
see,
whole
Bo
wrestling
Nickel.
career. He had a whole wrestling career before, and I think he even tried to, try out for the Olympics, but I don't think he made it.
27.
Yeah, so like you said, they may just need to strike while the iron is hot. And I know they're trying to make him to the next big star, so I guess we got to see if he sinks or swims.
Yeah.
But that takes us to the next fight on the card. We had Dan Hooker defeating Jalen Turner. And this may be my fight of the month. We'll talk about that a little bit later in the podcast. But first round was it was just a straight banger. Jalen had the first round, but from there it was all Dan Hooker, and they were just throwing bombs at each other. What were y'all thoughts on this fight?
Man, like that whole first round, I was like, oh, dude, Jalen Turner's got this. Like, he looked like he had it in the bag. And then halfway through the second round, man, Hooker turned something on. It was weird. He became like this whole different fighter. Jalen Turner didn't have a lot of highlight moments after that. He did bloody him up a lot. But other than that, I mean, Hooker outstruck him by like 80 strikes or something like that. Jalen Turner did get the one takedown, but I don't know. I don't know if there was something that got rocked in him. Jalen did not look like the same fighter after like 1.5 rounds.
It's funny you say that because the comparison, you said something got turned on. I think fighting martial arts is like life, ups and downs. And people might have a down 2-3 fights but maybe something he got hit. And it's funny you say that because I saw the last time he was on the downfall was after that Poirier fight. And I saw glimpses of Poirier when he was tearing him up on how they were striking at each other and had him against the fence. That's what that reminded me of. And something got turned on, like you said, and we started seeing glimpses of when he was still at his height.
Yeah, because I think last episode, the pre-show, we were talking about how Dan Hooker's kind of been on the downhill, after a couple of those losses. But yeah, he really turned it on, and he looked like his old self. So good for him. Jalen Turner, I hope he doesn't fall too far out of the ranks and out of the good graces of the UFC, because Jalen Turner, he's a gamer too. I mean, he throws heat, and he kind of got dominated on the ground when they were rolling around, but I don't think Jalen Turner should be defined by this fight. I hope he comes back from it.
Yeah. Well, we'll be keeping an eye out for both of these fighters. Like you said, they left it all in the cage, and man, it was a banger. But that takes us into the meat of the card. We had Dricus du Plessis, DDP, defeating Robert Whitaker by TKO in the second round. And the first round was pretty evenly matched. Whitaker started off hot, and then DDP turned the tables around and finished off the round with ground and pound. And then DDP just put it on them in the second round and got the TKO. What were y'all thoughts on this fight?
Yeah, man, Robert Whitaker opened up that fight and looked real good. He was using that jab. He was using a lot of the kicks to the knee. He looked real good. And then towards the end of the first round, DDP caught him with a solid hit, and Whitaker did not look the same after that. When the first round was over, they had to tell Robert Whitaker where to go, like where his corner was. And after that, it was all DDP. Second round, he got the finish. He looked, pretty good. Robert Whitaker, I don't know how I feel about him anymore. He's been to the top. He's hung around the top 3-4 the last few years. He still got it, but he don't have it. I don't know if he needs to maybe change up his game plans, his training, something. Something's just not hitting for Robert Whittaker right now. He's a better fighter than what he showed last night.
Steve, what were your thoughts?
Yeah, like you said, he was first round, test out, got a few pot shots in, he had a good jab that, knocked his head back as far as Duplessis. And then, like you said, I guess we got another middleweight. You got certain fighters in middleweight, like you'll have somebody that will stick with the fighters, immovable bodies, UOLs, hard. And it seems like Robert Whittaker was one of those. It seemed like he would be very dominant or very to the skill level he was fighting. And Duplessis surprised me because I didn't think he would be to the skill level of Whittaker. And got him with striking. And hey, that's one of Whittaker's good skills. And I think this fight makes me happy because of what Adesanya and Whittaker went through. We now have a new hope of like a contender in that middleweight class. Because if he lost, there's nobody else to fight, and I don't think really people wouldn't care about a Whittaker Adesanya 3.
Right.
So we'll get into that in a second. But going back to you, Admire, you saying that Whittaker may not have it. I mean, in the past 13 fights, he's only lost 3 fights, and it's been 2 to Adesanya and 1 to DDP. So maybe it's just, he can't get over that hump, but he still probably, beat a lot of the middleweights in the division. So.
Right. Yeah. I mean, and that could be that it's just fresh in my mind that, he is fighting the top guys and that's who he's losing to. But there was a point in time a few years ago where he just looked untouchable. I thought he was going to be the man at middleweight. Like nobody would touch him. I don't know. I don't know where you go with him because, like you said, that's his only losses is to those 2 guys. He's fought everybody else, I think, except for I don't think he's fought Alex Pereira. I think Alex Pereira had the idea of moving up, but that's really your only other choice because I think Robert Whittaker's already beat Cannonier. I think he's already beat Vettori, Costa, all the likes of those guys. So I don't know where you go with him.
Yeah, he beat Gastelum, Cannonier just had a big win, but so I don't know, maybe you run that back. He's got a win over Darren Till, but that's kind of a downside. He even got a win over Yoel Romero, or 2 wins over him in those title fights. I really don't know where you go with him either.
Hey, if you want to give him credit for who he is, champ, I would say the only thing good for him, like you said, Cannonier. Now that you said it, that's the only sensible fight for him. Because Cannonier just fought. Now he's on the rise of climbing, and he just declined, so they meet again. I think it would be a good rematch.
Yeah, that's the only thing that I can see that makes sense off the top of my head right now. I was just running back with Cannonier. I mean, the UFC doesn't have problems running a lot of the stuff back. You make good points. Cannonier just had a big win. Whittaker on a loss. Unless Alex Pereira is going to stay at middleweight, but I heard he was going up to light heavy.
He is.
Yeah, he's got a fight with Blachowicz.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's coming up soon. So, talking about the other fighter in this fight, DDP with the big win. And after the fight, a certain middleweight champion got in the ring. And Jay, I sent you the clip, but we got to make sure the sound is up on this while we take a look at this clip.
Weirdest fucking promo ever.
All right. We're fine. Relax. This is my African brother right here. Let's go, nigga. What's up, bitch? Let's go, nigga. Yeah, nigga. What's up, nigga?
Get this
the
shit
fuck
up.
you gonna do, nigga? Yeah, my African brother. What's up, nigga?
I'm African, but I ain't no brother of yours, son.
You my nigga. Let's go. You my nigga for real. I'll show you.
So what are you saying to everybody in New Zealand? What are you saying?
Joe, I'll tell you one thing. Yo, I don't need a DNA test. I don't need a 36andMe to know where I'm from. You know, if I do a 26andMe, they'll say I'm from Nigeria. Do a 26andMe DNA test. It'll tell you where you're from. I will show you where you're from.
So,
I think that's drunk Adesanya.
oh man, I don't even know where to start with that whole hoopla. I'll let you start off, Adam.
Izzy needs to go to the school of McGregor or Sonnen and learn some shit talking, because that wasn't it. I was watching that. I had like nothing in my TikToks or anywhere had showed up and gave me warning of what I was about to see when I was watching it today. And I put it in our chat, man. I was like, what the fuck is this, man? Like, whatever. He can use the N-bomb, whatever. But the other shit does not make sense. He says 36 in me, then 26 in me. And if anybody doesn't know where that comes from, is they're both from, supposedly the same country. And, is it what, Africa? Is that what it is?
Same continent. So I don't know if you follow the background story of this. DDP was trying to say that Adesanya wasn't really from Africa. He's from New Zealand, I want to say, he said. And the whole thing was, DDP was saying I'm more African than him and whatever. Just weird promo. Like, I'm sure Dana White probably sent him an email today. Dude, don't do that. Like, but I agree. I think he was probably drinking a little bit or something. And I do got to shout out Izzy, though. I like the whole style of guys wearing pearl necklaces. That actually looks really fucking cool. Oh, it might be for a different podcast, pearl necklaces, but I digress.
Didn't mean to like that.
In today's world, about that whole promo.
Oh yeah, cringe. I think he was definitely drunk. That word cringily used out of somebody who probably, I don't know, but somebody that's not even the culture, even probably, I don't know, but even being around somebody saying the N-word around him, it is like, whoa, I'm not that. He was put into a racial situation to where you can tell at first he didn't know what to say. And at first he said, I am African. But I said, I thought he was about to say, I'm no it. I thought he was about to say that.
I thought he was too.
I thought he was about to slip up. But Izzy needs to stop doing that shit, man. Cringy. It looks immature. He can do what he wants as superstar, but as far as like he doesn't have to care. He's making money, but like, are you trying to personify yourself as a mature adult? Because people ain't just humping people in the ring. Like, it's those type of things. He keeps on doing cringy things. I don't like it.
Yeah. I could see TMZ playing that, and just making a story out of it and putting him in the wrong spotlight.
And I think it would have been more organic, even if he used the N-word, if he wasn't drunk. The way he was talking, he seemed like he was drunk. It was all cringy.
Yeah, it was super awkward. I was just clenching my butthole the whole time watching. Man, what is he doing? The funny part, Duplessis was like, "I'm not your brother."
Yeah. Oh, it's embarrassing in watching it by yourself, but with other people in the room, it makes it worse. Like, I don't want to watch. Oh shit.
Oh yeah, EJ, did you watch the Buffalo Wild Wings?
No, I watched it on my couch.
Damn, I want to get feedback from somebody that was like at Buffalo Wild Wings or in public when that went down, and just see everybody kind of just give that weird side eye.
Yeah, that's a weird frequency to touch, sort of say, with other people in the room that's just trying to chill. You watching a UFC match and they're throwing the N-word everywhere. That's what did it for me. Although I wasn't in an environment, I can see how that could happen.
Yeah, it's definitely not a good look for Izzy. But as far as the actual fight goes, how do y'all see this one playing out? Because this will be the next fight that they make, DDP and Izzy. How do y'all think that plays out?
I think DDP has a lot of tools. We got to see a lot of them last night. He's very unorthodox. He has a lot of, kind of crazy moves and shit. I think he's got a little bit to put Izzy in trouble and kind of keep him on his toes. But it's hard to bet against Izzy, against really anybody, just because he's been up there and he's fought the who's who. I think it's going to be a good fight. I could see DDP winning and this being, a trilogy type deal.
That's a hot take. What do you think, Steve?
Like you said, he opens up new windows for possible threats. We're finally seeing outside the normal. It's 2 fights with Whitaker. Really, he's beat everybody, and to see him dominate Whitaker like that after Whitaker trained so hard to get back after the second fight with Adesanya, and to just, the only person to knock out Whitaker like that in middleweight is Adesanya. So it's significant, that win, to see that Duplessis has some new possibilities. But then again, it's MMA. Styles makes fights, and we can see destruction that Adesanya puts on. So we'll have to see.
Yeah, man. I think there's levels to this shit. I mean,
definitely.
I'm sure we'll talk about this fight more once they actually officially make it and when we preview that. But as far as early takes on how the fight goes, I think Izzy might put it on him because still really haven't seen a lot of what DDP has to offer, even though that was impressive what he did to Whitaker. But I don't know, man. It's hard to keep up with Izzy on the feet unless, DDP can get it on the ground. I think that'd be his best method of actually winning is if he could wrestle Izzy some, but nobody's really wrestled Izzy like that outside of Blachowicz. So, yeah, we'll definitely be keeping an eye on when they actually make the fight. But that'll take us to the co-main event. We had Alexandra Pantoja defeating Brandon Moreno, split decision. And I had written down notes for this fight, but I'm going to throw those out of the window. I'll let y'all talk about the fight more in detail, but it was pretty much the story of when it was standing, Moreno had it. He's popping that jab, but when it got to the ground, it was all Pantoja. Pantoja controlled it on the ground, and he was able to squeak out the decision. It was such an ugly win for Pantoja. But what were your thoughts on this fight, Admire?
Yeah, like exactly what you said. I mean, standing up, Moreno had him, but Pantoja, he game planned, get him to the ground. He landed, I think, 5, 6 takedowns. He attempted, quite a few more than that, but Pantoja stayed very busy when he had Moreno on the ground. I think that was like the big key to victory is he didn't just try to hold him down and get points for it. He stayed very busy, roughing him up. The strike count on this, Moreno threw like 265 strikes and Pantoja threw 323. I mean, that's a big gap, but they landed about the same.
Hold up. Where do you say that? Say that one more time. How many strikes did Moreno throw?
265.
Opposed to Pantoja?
Pantoja had 323 strikes.
That's interesting. It must have been a lot on the ground that Pantoja throw.
It was a lot on the ground. It was a real gritty fight. I mean, it's one of those fights that 9 times out of 10, I think Moreno would probably win, but this was just that one that Pantoja, it was the right night. He did all the right things. Could he do it again? I don't know. So, and, Moreno's been up there for a while. So I expect that these two will meet again. This is the second time that they fought. So run it again.
Saw a lot of wrestling from Moreno or grappling. I think he got him down a few times, but then like round 2 or 2.5, you just seen it change, and it seemed like Pantoja turned it up. And I forgot to mention also in that Poirier fight, there's 2 injuries. Poirier broke his femur, and Moreno broke his hand. So that's probably the tide that Moreno backed off on the championship pressure, and Pantoja, got to win. I think a lot because of that. You hurt your hand, that significantly stopped your grappling, striking, and Pantoja, I thought turned it up after a certain amount of rounds. I can't remember exactly, but started elbow on the ground. The damage, Moreno's face was jacked up. It was a good fight.
Yeah, I had Pantoja winning it as well, but it was ugly. It wasn't impressive. So where do we go from here? Do they run that back, or do they try to find another contender for Pantoja to face? What do y'all think?
I think as a favor, they give Moreno, they run it back. I don't know if something was off with Moreno. I haven't really seen him get dominated on the ground like that too bad, though. It was another one of those fights. It didn't feel like he was him.
Because all the times where he fought Figgy, I think when Figgy got him down, he popped back up for the most part. So, I don't know if I've seen him get controlled on the ground like that. What do you think, Steve?
I think it's that broken hand.
So did they confirm? Did they confirm that it was a broken hand that he had?
I think when he went to the get checked up, I have to deeply research, but just seeing scale and information what's on MMA every day. I saw that he had a handbrake, and also Dan Hooker, he broke his arm.
Oh shit!
I didn't know. I didn't hear about the injury report. That's interesting though. Hooker, I guess, gonna be healing that injury
to get that win off with that.
Yeah,
he did.
So Admar saying they should run it back. You think they should run it back as well, Steve?
Who are the what are the top 5?
So you got Figgy is still ranked number 1, but on this latest ranking, they haven't came out with a new one since this past fight. But Figgy said he's going up to bantamweight, so I don't think that'll happen.
He's fighting Cruz.
Yeah, there we go. He's fighting Dominic Cruz. That's interesting. I'm actually interested in that fight. But you got Amir Albazi at number 3, Brandon Roval at number 4, and then Kai Kara France, who I think this came off a loss, if I'm not mistaken. Didn't Kai Kara France just lose?
I think so. Brandon Royale's on the rise.
So would you like to see Pantoja versus Roval or Albazi?
I'd rather see Royale or that. I mean, Albazi, I haven't even paid attention to his fights. It can be justifiable to run it back, but then again, like it was a decision.
Split decision at that.
It may be an argument, but there's also an argument to see somebody's on the rise to get a fight. And Royale's been winning off wins too. And he's not even a popular fighter, but I know his style and I like MMA. Like I've been looking at him. So he's going to be a contender. And I think the last fight I seen Royale lose, an injury happened. I can't remember who it was, but he's been winning ever since.
I'm going to lean on the side of them running it back because, Royval might be more deserving of the next shot, but I think Moreno has a little bit star power and, the flyweights, they've built their name up from almost getting cut from the whole UFC in general, but I think you would get more eyes if you ran it back with him or Moreno. And I think Moreno might edge him out next time. I might be wrong because Pantoja, he's got his number. He's beat him before. This is his 3rd win, technically. He beat him in an exhibition on the Ultimate Fighter. And he beat him like 5 years ago, and he beat him again. So maybe he's just in Moreno's head at this point. I don't know. We'll have to see how it plays out, I guess. But I wouldn't be mad if they ran it back. But that'll take us to the main event. We had Alexander the Great, Volkanovski, defeating Yair Rodriguez by TKO. In the first round, there was a lot of feeling out, and then Volk got the takedown and controlled Rodriguez for the remainder of the round. Then that second round, Rodriguez began the round throwing out kicks until Volk got a hold of him and got him to the ground and beat him up, bloodied him up in that second round with the ground and pound. And then the third round, kind of the same, Rodriguez started out on the feet, throwing a lot of the kicks, but he basically won the round until towards the end of that the third round. And he threw that kick. Volkanovski countered it with that right hook, got him to the ground, finished it off with some TKO ground and pound towards the end of the round, of the third round, and got the win. So what were y'all thoughts on this fight?
Yeah, I mean, Volkanovski, he looked great. Rodriguez, he did something like you were talking about in like the middle of the third round. He kind of became a different fighter, like mid-fight, and it was like, oh shit, he's got a chance now. And then Volkanovski caught that kick, and it was kind of just over after that. I mean, Volkanovski 7 takedowns, pretty dominant in that. Rodriguez got a couple warnings in that fight for a couple different things. Herb Dean said, hey, you did this. Do not bring me into this fight. So, and I think even his toe got stuck in Volkanovski's shorts at one point.
Man, that was weird.
Yeah, never seen that happen, but Volkanovski, he's tough as they come, man. He's going to be just hard to beat. I know he's got a couple losses on his record, but he's tough, dude.
Yeah, the more he fights, the more, I mean, MMA shows body math. He has a frame to where he can carry. I don't know if it's his muscle fibers or heavier than others, but for his compact size, and to just compare how he just stuck it in there with Islam, and just how he's just with these featherweights, and it's like he has a real strong structure and foundation to where like these featherweights probably don't even have enough power to knock him out. I believe everybody's knockoutable, but he's showing dominant wins, and I think he's up there as far as the GOATs and pound for pound. But I'm tired of people saying over John Jones. I hate that. But second, I can say he's up there. He's earned my respect.
Yeah, that whole fight, I was thinking, what if Volkanovski and John Jones weighed the same? What would happen if they were, pound per pound is supposed to be, if everybody is equally, the same weight class, what would happen? That would be a tough one, man. Like, Volkanovski is just, I don't know if there's anybody that can knock him out. Like you said, like he comes from that rugby background that he's used to getting his head hit, which would normally mean they would be more susceptible to knockouts. But I've never seen that dude seem like he was just going to be out of it. Okay,
so y'all kind of foreshadowed what I was going to bring up, and Steve already answered it. So after the fight was over, Daniel Cormier said Volkanovski is pound for pound the best fighter in the world. And I don't know if we could take his word because he's got a beef with somebody.
Need to stop hating. He's a hater, man. I'm getting tired of him.
He's got to get his digs in, man. Yeah, he does that. That's his way of digging at John Jones. You still, even if Volkanovski and John Jones weigh the same, you still have to put your money on John Jones. He's the GOAT.
And went up and didn't lose. How can you compare to that?
I was going to say, and not to take credit from anything that Volkanovski's done, but he did tried his hand at going up at a higher weight class, and he failed. John Jones went up to a higher weight class and got the job done. So
That's
how could
literally
you call
pound for pound.
Volkanovski a pound for pound great? What was that, Steve?
And that's literally pound for pound because it's skeptical all over the weight board. You having a 125 at number one. But if you're the heaviest of the men, pound for pound number one, you most likely can take a light heavyweight. Yeah, if you get where I'm going, middleweight versus being a middleweight is questionable if you were pound for pound number one, if you can take out the lowest heavyweights. John Jones is the baddest MMA man on earth, I think.
You agree with that, Admire?
Yeah, John Jones is. I mean, to be the man, you got to beat the man. And John Jones is doing it at two different weight classes now. He's just the man. You can't deny that. You know, I've tried to deny that. You know, I'll go into the pound for pound talk and I'll bring up GSP. And by the end of the conversation, I'm saying, yeah, John Jones is the man.
Put it this way. If you wanted to have elite people to go to war with your fight hand to hand, would you pick the best flyweight? Would you pick the best featherweight? And this is the best of the class. Or would you pick obviously the more structural heavy man, skilled? You would go with the heavyweight. He's literally nobody in UFC can touch him. They'll get their ass kicked.
Yeah, but I don't know if like what Amar is talking about. If you put these two men at the same weight, who would win? And I still think you take John Jones because
yeah, definitely. Now it comes sophisticated because then you might get caught and use your whole body to strike on or to attack one limb. You know, and then maybe you might do it. But I mean, John Jones, he's proved he's too damn strong. Just throwing people in the cowboy clinch or tie clinch and just throwing them like I don't think Volk can mess with that.
Yeah, I mean, I think we all agree that, John Jones is still the pound for pound king all time and currently of current competition. Because if you look at UFC's ranking of pound for pound, John Jones is still at number one and Volkanovski is number two. I don't think that changes over this weekend. But what we all do with Volkanovski as far as next matchups? What do y'all think he should go?
I kind of think he should try his hand at going up in weight again. That's the only thing holding him back from that, we're talking John Jones. That's the only thing holding Volkanovski back from saying he is the GOAT. To be in that conversation, you have to notch some wins at a different weight class.
Steve, what do you think?
I totally agree, and that's what gives John Jones the more weight on the scale. He actually went up and won to where Volkanovski is like, to the fan, I think he's up there because he had a good competition with Islam, but you didn't win. So that's the difference for me. And there's actually argument that he should be, but I totally disagree with that.
So I might be in disagreement with both of you. I think you might want to let that matchup between him and Islam breathe a little bit. Let Islam fight Charles Oliveira again. And I think in the meantime, Volkanovski should face Ilya Topuria. Ilya just came off that big win a couple weeks ago.
That's right.
And they showed him in the crowd. So, feed him to Volkanovski in the meantime. And then maybe late next year, you run him and Islam back again to see if Volkanovski can get that win. Volkanovski's no spring chicken. He's my age. He's like 35. So, the clock is ticking on, his career at this point, as far as him being in his prime still, because he's definitely still in his prime.
Yeah.
But we'll see. We'll see. I like Volkanovski. I've never really liked his style like that, but there's no denying how good he is. He's the greatest featherweight of all time. How can you deny that? Even over Jose Aldo. I consider Jose Aldo all-time great at one point, but he beat Aldo head-to-head, and Aldo got starched by Conor McGregor and had some losses after that in the featherweight division, and nobody's beating Volkanovski in the UFC, man. Featherweight division. So it kind of like snuck up on us because we all had Aldo there for so long, and then all of a sudden Volkanovski, you're like, wait, he might be the all-time great at featherweight. And
for me, he popped out
Max
of nowhere.
Holloway, he's got 3 wins over Max Holloway.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's no denying it at this point. But let's look at our predictions for the night. This is Admire's best showing since we started keeping count of the records. Admire went 4-1 on the night as far as prediction goes.
Which one did I pick wrong?
What's that? The only one you picked wrong was, let's see, you chose Jalen Turner. That's the only one you picked wrong.
That's right.
And all of us went 2 and 3, including Jay.
Hell yeah, Jay. Good job, bud.
Yeah, so we'll keep track of Jay's picks. He's got a lot catching up. He might be able to catch up with Admire, but we'll start keeping Jay's picks from here on out to the rest of the end of the year. But for the year, Admire is 6-14. I am 12-8. Steve is 9-11, and Jay is 2-3. So, hey, Jay may be able to catch up with Admire.
I'll catch Admire. just bet on the opposite. I'll be good.
All right. Well, that takes us to Beyond the Cage. What do you got for us, Admire, Beyond the Cage?
Well, I'll throw a reminder. So the Beyond the Cage is just to kind of talk about something about the fighters that, happened outside of the cage. So, I used Matt Serra as an example. Sometimes it'll be recent news. Sometimes it'll be real old news. So what I'm going to talk about today is a little, a death that we missed about a month ago. About a month ago was the anniversary of Kimbo Slice's death. So outside of the cage, I want to talk about Kimbo Slice and kind of the way he came about and really what he did for MMA without being an MMA first. I don't know if you guys ever watched, but a big deal to me and my friends was checking YouTube every day for a new Kimbo Slice backyard fight. So Kimbo, his real name, Kevin Ferguson, he started out as a bouncer at a nightclub. Then he was a security guard for a porn studio all down in Miami, around Tampa, all the different little Florida cities, hot spots. And he ran the underground fights, and he was the man forever. And that was like a big introduction to me of seeing fights on the internet. And me and my friends just thought he was the baddest motherfucker in the world. And street fight wise, he was like, I think only one fight he really lost, which was against Sean Gannon. They had in a gym, but Kimbo was really untouchable in the street fight world. He's the underground king of street fights. Jorge Masvidal used to fight. It's some of the same events, I'll say, the backyard meetings of the boys, but, and then Kimbo came into the UFC. Dana White said he'd never signed the guy, got him on the Ultimate Fighter. And that's where I think a lot of these people that watch internet videos became MMA fans. They got to see that this guy that we thought was invincible just get railed by real mixed martial artists. So it was a big bridge that was, a gap that was filled. These people thought, a guy that stands up and throws heavy hands is going to be able to beat anybody. And, we saw Kimbo lose to, Roy Nilsson, Matt Mitrione, and the likes of those guys. So that's my outside of the cage or beyond the cage. He did a lot for the sport and getting a lot of eyes on it by not even being a pro fighter at the time.
Yeah. Like you said, I remember those early YouTube days, watching those backyard fights. I remember watching it in my dorm room. This is back when I was at South Carolina State, and watching that fight where the guy's eyeball was hanging out.
Yeah, he fought a guy named Bird, and his fucking eye was hanging out.
That's the first one I saw. I think that may be a lot of people's first one.
That was brutal, and the guy was just smiling like a maniac. He was like, we had a good fight. You just probably lost your vision for the rest of your life, and you're just smiling like, what are you doing, dude?
Yeah. I mean, A lot of those fights, there was one Kimbo took on two guys back to back. I mean, they would line up people, and this wasn't like people they just, hey, you want to fight this guy? It was guys that, they wanted to get that tough guy persona. If you beat Kimbo, you were the man down in Miami, and Kimbo didn't lose any street fights. There's no video of it except for that one with Sean Gannon, and it was kind of in a dojo or a training place.
He lost that fight, but the real loser was Sean Gannon, if you see his face in that fight.
What? I don't know if I've seen that fight. Like, what happened with Sean Gannon?
So Sean Gannon was like a big police officer, I think from Iowa, and they called Kimbo, hey, come up here, fight this guy. I think it was a really lucrative fight. I think it was like a $20,000 or $50,000 fight for him. And the rules weren't really explained because Kimbo's fights were always stand up. If somebody went down, they got a count, or, it had to stay standing up. Well, this guy got Kimbo down and I think he choked him for a little bit, and people started jumping in, no ground fight, and it was all stand up. But they fought, I think it was 10 minutes straight, just throwing, and Sean Gannon's face was hamburgered up. I mean, Kimbo landed just bombs on him, but he ultimately, that was Kimbo's first time that we seen him, in a bad situation.
Mm.
And the fight ended because Kimbo was down and couldn't get up. He got the standing count.
Yeah,
that's crazy. Like you said, though, Kimbo was kind of the bridge between people, watching those underground fights and them getting interest in like organized fights, because they put him on the Ultimate Fighter, and that got a lot of eyes. I think that might have been one of the most highly rated seasons as far as ratings goes.
It was.
And then what was that organization he fought in and he lost? It was like their first card and their last card.
It was Elite FC or something like that, whereas UFC reject Seth Petrozelli knocked him out like really quickly. Just kind of got him with this jab that didn't even look like it was hard, but it stuck him. There was a fight before that Kimbo won against James Thompson. That's a famous fight because Kimbo hit him in his cauliflower ear and exploded the dude's ear. And that was on like ABC. It was primetime TV, and they didn't show stuff like that on TV at the time.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember that fight.
So I think Kimbo Slice was an example of you could be tough and rough, like fighting on the streets, but when you actually try the sport, it's levels to it, and it's difference between fighting on the street and fighting in the actual organized sport.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Amar.
I think Kimbo's big win in the UFC, I think it was Houston Alexander. And Houston Alexander used to fight at 185, and Kimbo was a heavyweight, but I think they matched them up, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
You going to say something, Steve, though?
I forgot before, but I do remember the Houston Alexander fight, and that was actually a good matchup to see. It looked like Kimbo was a better one, but to see it for what it was, they were banging.
Yeah, he beat Houston Alexander by decision. It was a catch weight of 215, and Houston Alexander was a 185er before that, so he went up, 30 pounds.
Yeah,
he didn't live up to that Keith Jardine knockout after that. As far as Houston,
hold up, he fought Keith Jardine too.
Yeah, he kept on tearing him up with uppercuts.
Houston Alexander did.
Yeah.
Oh, Houston Alexander.
Yeah.
So that would have been a 205 because Keith Jardine was a 205er. So maybe I'm wrong. Maybe Houston Alexander was a 205er, but yeah, I remember Houston. He went up either way just to fight Kimbo, and it was a decent fight for what it was. Houston wanted to keep it standing and kind of prove that he could trade with the monster that is Kimbo.
Yeah, and we talked about this before in the show, but I got to bring it up again. Kimbo Slice versus Dada 5000 on Bellator.
Yeah,
dude, that was fucking weird. That was
I've
just
never
weird.
laughed so hard in my life at a fight. That was bad, man.
I had my eyes closed and I was peeking. It was so bad. Hell, that was another cringe moment to where it's like they got dead tired, and I was like, I never seen this in a athletic sport presented on TV in my life.
Yeah, Dad at 5,000. I think he had like a heart attack or something. They thought he had a heart attack after or during that fight. Like it was so weird. And that was Kimbo's last official fight, I believe, in 2016. Yeah, Kimbo died like 4 months after that.
Like if you're a sanctioning body, how do you clear that fight to happen when a guy almost died in the ring? I can't even remember what state that happened in, but that could have been the end of Bellator if different circumstances if the guy died, maybe.
They did it in Houston, Texas.
Okay.
And I'm pretty sure Dada had to cut weight to make 265. He was not in shape. He was not an athlete at all. Like, but the way that fight came about is that guy claimed that he had fought Kimbo previously and beat him. So that's what it was. It was the beef.
Yeah. It was not a good look at all. And if I knew what I knew when the fight was happening, I wouldn't have been laughing, but I couldn't stop myself, man. It was bad.
Yeah.
But I don't know, like, how do you view Kimbo Slice's legacy overall, Admire?
There's not much legacy to it. I mean, the biggest thing that he did was get all them eyes that were people looking for street fighters, and he got them to watch UFC. And I think a lot of fans were born from that. You know, a lot of people that you talk to say that he was the nicest guy ever. You know, he was tough, but he was also a big teddy bear. He was a sweetheart and a good guy. So I don't think he'll go down in like any sort of Hall of Fame, but he's always going to have that most watched season of The Ultimate Fighter.
Yeah. How about you, Steve? What do you look at when thinking about Kimbo Slice's career?
Yeah. The time that we first saw him, if it was 10, 15 years later on and he came on the scene, he would just be a regular person, right? He caught the wave to where internet, I can say overall, was pretty new and cultures were just cultivating around that time, if y'all remember. And I specifically remember waiting 30 minutes for that video, that dude's eye popping out, buffering because internet was shitty and it wasn't fast. Internet wasn't available to everybody like that, right? At my friend's house, and waited 30 minutes for that damn thing to buffer, you know, on and off. He caught the wave of the internet at the right time. And like we said, we saw his MMA career wasn't as good, but you see he milked it for what his platform got him. And I think success to him.
Yeah. Well, rest in peace to Kimbo Slice. But that takes us to this week in fight history. UFC 148, July 7th of 2012. This was a pretty significant card. Big card, if y'all remember this one. Silva versus Sonnen 2. And looking back at this, if you look at the prelims, we had Shane Roller and John Alessio, but we had Costa Philippou, if y'all remember him, versus Ricky Faduda. You had Khabib Nurmagomedov defeating Gleason Taibu, and then we had Melvin Gillard defeating Fabricio Camoes. And that was just the prelims. We had Khabib on the prelims in that card. And then the main card had 6 fights, and I can't even recall UFC putting on 6 fights for the main card. You had Mike Easton defeating Ivan Menjivar, and Chad Money Mendez defeating Cody McKenzie, Damian Maia defeating Zhang Him Kim, Kung Lee defeating Patrick Cote, Forrest Griffin in the co-main event defeating Tito Ortiz, and then Anderson Silva defeating Chael Sonnen by TKO in the main event. Did y'all watch this fight live when it happened?
Watched it live. I was down at the lake. Ordered it. we packed everybody into the little trailer we had down there and watched it because I was telling everybody Chael Sonnen's going to whoop his ass. He whooped his ass for 5 rounds last fight and lost at the last minute.
This is the second fight. You thinking of the first
Yeah.
fight?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I was telling everybody Sonnen's going to beat his ass because he almost did the first time.
Okay. So you were predicting it. Okay, my bad.
I was predicting it. Yeah. And Sonnen, he tried some fucking spinning back fist and got his ass beat. I don't really remember the Forrest Griffin Tito Ortiz fight, but Kung Lee, that's a name I haven't thought about forever. Kung Lee, he was like a kind of a low budget Jackie Chan. He was a movie star over in China, had a lot of crazy moves and kicks and shit like that. Kind of a product of the time. That's, Machida was on top back in those days. Karate was making the big comeback. Damian Maia was doing what he does. Chad Mendez, of course, knocking people out. Yeah, back then they used to run a lot of, on the main card, they had a lot of fights. That was a good main card. Anderson Silva told Chael Sonnen after he beat him that he can come over and have dinner at his house anytime he wants.
Yeah, he got him back.
Yeah.
Did you watch this fight, Steve?
Spank his wife on the butt.
Did you watch this fight live, Steve?
I can't remember the location or live. I just do remember one of the most significant things, like Admire said. I remember him doing that spinning back fist and getting the shit beat out of my eye. I was like, well, that hype was shit. You know what I'm saying? Because I thought he would have problems after that first fight. I'm like, oh, he got caught. And I actually like Silva. I wanted him to win, but I didn't like how it just, the second one was kind of a dud to me.
Yeah, like Admire was saying, I picked Sonnen to win the second fight just because off the evidence I had in the first fight, and I like the way Sonnen used to talk shit, and so I'm like, all right, this is Silva time, to finally get a loss, and Silva starched him. Like he said, he tried that stupid back fist, and then he got kneed in the chest, didn't he? Didn't he get kneed in the chest?
Yeah. The solar plexus.
It was bad. And this was like probably the most hyped fight at that time. Like I remember like everybody was buzzing. It almost sold 1 million pay-per-view buys as well. So, and this is probably the peak of Chael Sonnen, if you think about it, because
that was the downfall of him.
Downhill. And what we know now is he was on every type of drug there is at the time and still lost.
Right.
But yeah, it was definitely a fun card to watch. But that'll take us to our fight of the month picks, and my pick is definitely Dan Hooker and Jalen Turner's fight. That was such a banger, man. So that'll go for my fight of the month pick. What do you got, Admire?
Mine, that is a good one up there. I'm going to go with Cannonier Vittori.
Ooh, that was a good one.
Yeah,
that was for significant strikes in that division. So
yeah, and that's exactly why. Just the high output of that fight, it was a banger. I got it up there in fight of the year almost.
What you got, Steve?
I know I'm trying to recollect these past ones. I'm trying to look up one. What's the I'll focus on pay-per-view. What's the past pay-per-views of the month? I know it's Cannon Inventory, and
we had the Strickland one last weekend, and
Strickland,
and then this pay-per-view since the last time we picked our fights off.
We had Emmett, Josh Emmett, and Topuria.
Topuria. Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I hate to choose the same one as somebody, but I have to agree. I haven't actually been waiting for somebody to just sacrifice their face and just get into it. We like seeing that. And we saw that with Jalen Turner and Dan Hooker. Like I said, it reminded me of the Poirier and Dan Hooker. And I can't think of any significant fight, at least this month or this year, that's been, they went at it like that. So I think they earned their spot as a nominee for fight of the year. If we're going to see more, of course, but it's definitely a nominee.
Not mad at that, man. So coming to close to the end of the show, but before we preview UFC 291 next month, there's some cards in between, but it's nothing of high significance. You got Holly Holm taking on Bueno Silva. Then you got Tom Aspinall facing Marcin Tybura in a fight night card. That's in the 02, so I think Molly McCann's on that card as well, and they got a lot of British fighters. So, yeah, that might be actually pretty interesting. So, I mean, we have some free time. We might, do a little pop-up episode for that. But any fights in the future before 291 that caught y'all eye?
Not a lot. I mean, there's not a lot of big names on that card coming up, but Molly, she's always a good one to watch fight. Tybura, always fun to watch. Other than that, no.
How about you, Steve?
A lot of these insignificant cards is I can sit and watch it, but unless there's some people that are prominent on the card, I usually wait for the person that I'm interested in and not watch the whole thing. Or, of course, if it's interesting enough. Well, hell, there's been co-main events more interesting before than the damn main. So, but definitely I'll watch it, but nothing significant. Now, I am waiting for that Poirier and Gaethje too. But you said before that, so I don't know.
Yeah, and like I said, we'll be back next month to preview that big card because it's a bunch of bangers on that one. But that brings us to the end of the show. But before we get out of here at Haymaker MMA, we're looking to expand our horizons a little bit and maybe dip our toes in other combat sports. And we got some big boxing matches coming at the end of the month. You got Earl Spence versus Bud Crawford and Jake Paul versus Nate Diaz. So be on the lookout for more details to look for us expanding our horizons a little bit on the show. So check out our Twitter and follow that to get more details on that in the future. We might even dip our toes into bare knuckle boxing and maybe some grappling and maybe some kickboxing. So like I said, be on the lookout on our Twitter for more details on that. But anything from y'all before we get on out of here?
Nope, my food's ready. I gotta go get these ribs.
That's what's up, eating hearty.
I ain't got nothing to say. I ain't gonna keep you from your food, man. I know how that is.
Well, that'll do it for us here on Haymaker MMA. Be on the lookout for our social media. Until next time, be safe out there. Later.
Super Bowl weekend, the biggest rematch in the history of the business. I'm calling you out, Silva, but we're up in the stakes. I beat you. You leave the division. You beat me. I will leave the UFC forever.